Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another episode of ARC, the show where I get to be an asshole reviewing comics. And this week, we're doing something a little different. We're going to be talking about a crossover, something that I talk about a lot on this segment. But we're going to be talking about two separate two-issue stories, two from the Todd McFarlane run and Spider-Man, and two from the Howard Mackie run in Ghost Rider. But both of these stories see a crossover between Spider-Man and Ghost Rider and a particular villain in general, the Hobgoblin. They share similar themes, like writing arcs, and they complement each other really, really well. In fact, this one continues some of the threads planted in this one, and that's why I'm going to be talking about them both today. Now, I'll get to some comparing and contrasting at the end, but I will say this is a part of a huge Spider-Man arc. Todd McFarlane's work with Spider-Man is almost as big as like his Spawn work, like his work illustrating Spider-Man. It's such an iconic look for Spider-Man, and I feel like in this story he got to do some really cool shit with imagery because he does some cool looking shit with the Hobgoblin. I mean, fucking A. The art in this, the look, he makes the Hobgoblin look so fucking sinister. And I love that. And not only does he do that, but he makes Ghost Rider fucking intense. I mean, this is Ghost Rider's introduction, and he's dangling a child predator over a roof for his sins before dropping him and catching him and giving him the penance stare. He gives him a taste of death before giving him his own sort of salvation through the penance stare. And it's a cool-ass story. I like a lot of the themes this story explores. I like the Hobgoblin in it. Throughout these stories, both of these stories, the Hobgoblin has superpowers. He has these sort of... he's been imbued with these supernatural abilities and this more demonic look. And throughout the story, it's about innocence and using religion and religious imagery and text as a sort of conduit for your own agenda. And I like that. And I like how it starts in this story with something different before becoming something more in the Ghost Rider stories. But essentially, Hobgoblin is abducting people, he's killing people, and he finds this child. He finds this child that he, instead of killing, decides to take under his wing and sort of corrupt this youthful mind, while also using words like harlot and this old biblical terms, and using and painting good guys in a bad light, calling them demons. He calls Ghost Rider the devil in this story, when Ghost Rider finally crosses paths with Spider-Man and Hobgoblin. He calls Spider-Man a tool of the devil in his own words. And what I like about this is the ruthlessness of Ghost Rider and how Spider-Man has to not only defend this child and defeat the Hobgoblin, but teach, who is Danny Ketch at this point. He's not Johnny Blaze. He's not... For those who don't know Ghost Rider, it's not just Johnny Blaze. There's a multitude of Ghost Riders. And in the 90s, it was Danny Ketch, who is one of my favorite Ghost Riders. I like a lot of the stuff that's explored in his arcs and his various stories, and I like how even in this story, it still very much ties to the themes written in this, but it also is a big part of Danny Ketch's story as a whole. But in this, it has Spidey trying to teach Ghost Rider to rein it in a little bit. You know, he's trying to show him that, yes, it's good to beat evil, but you need to be mindful of the casualties at stake. You know, because this child, and I mean, Ghost Rider's trying to save innocence. He's trying to save this child. And throughout the first story, it's Spider-Man and Ghost Rider looking for the Hobgoblin in their own ways, their own extreme ways, through the criminal underground, you know, and I like that about it. I like the portrayal of that, and I like how far this goes with the child in the Hobgoblin's under the Hobgoblin's wing. But the biggest thing that it explores is not only it's important to be mindful of what really is good and evil, and I like how it uses theism in its own way. Again, it's not directly tied to theistic deities, but Hobgoblin, again, uses biblical terms and old English words to turn them against people like Ghost Rider, and I like their interactions in this. I like the interactions between the two of them. I like the conversations between Spidey and Ghost Rider in this about the limits Ghost Rider needs to take to uphold what he's trying to uphold. You know, while they're both on the same side, it's similar to the Punisher, where Ghost Rider sometimes takes it too far and innocence gets killed in the process. And Spider-Man's just trying to reach him, man. And I feel like at the end of it, that's a big part of it. You know, that's a big part of what Ghost Rider walks away from this story learning, and it carries over into these. Now, again, I'll talk about comparisons in the end, but Tex's art in here is still really striking. He knows what he's doing with the Ghost Rider. You know, when it comes to transformations and some of the more graphic aspects of that. You know, it's still very striking imagery. And I like how in this story, amidst Danny Ketch dealing with his own problems with being under Zathros's, you know, or Zarathos's possession, endowed with his powers, his personality, Johnny Blaze steps in. Johnny Blaze is actually in this, and he and Danny Ketch talk about being under the guidance of Zarathos and the differences between the two, because a big part of this story as a whole is Danny dealing with the personalities. He's dying. The entity is killing him. And Johnny Blaze is just trying to save him, but is learning that Danny and Zarathos's relationship is different than his and Zarathos's. And I like that. I like that it explores that dynamic shift. I like that it sets Danny apart from Johnny, while also introducing the Hobgoblin into the mix and exploring the importance of, or again, extending the ideals from that comic book, from the Spider-Man story. Because it opens with Danny being put in the hospital by Johnny, who's trying to, again, defeat Zarathos and get him out of Danny's body. And in the chaos of this, Danny's mother seeks help. She seeks religious, spiritual guidance, but not in her typical way. She ends up falling into the eyes of this cult that is being led by none other than the Hobgoblin, who is extending, as you can see up there, his beliefs from the Spider-Man stories. And I like how that happens. I like the tie into that. I like how they even visually address some of the stuff that went on in there. And a big part of the story from there on is Ghost Rider trying to keep in mind what he learned from Spider-Man in the last story, but having difficulty to do so because, unlike in this story, where it's just an innocent mind, it's personal. It's Danny's mom, you know? And I like how throughout this story, not only are, again, Spidey and Danny trying to find the Hobgoblin in their own ways, because he gets away in this one, they do a good job of integrating Johnny Blaze into that, you know, and keeping those things planted in this story and throughout this arc. A big part of this still, the struggles that Danny is having with Zarathos, also with him. A lot of the ideals and conversations that they had in the Spider-Man arc are still carried over in here, of knowing your power, knowing how to use it, knowing how to control yourself, while also continuing the threads of use of sinners and the devil and imagery of that. and verbiage of that with the Hobgoblin, and discussing corruption and religion through a more broader eyes, but still in the same lane of what Todd McFarlane was discussing on this. And I like that. And I like that the concept isn't lost. It's merely expanded upon and made personal in this story by using Danny's mother as the conduit of innocence. It's still, they end things in a more learned, again, the journey of Danny Ketch from these stories is felt. And it feels like he's actually learned, not only from the Spider-Man stuff, but anything that Johnny Blaze may have instilled in him in this also kind of extends into that. I mean, it's a good story. It's a really good story. I've tried not to talk a whole lot about certain specific plot details, like how things happen, but I will say a lot of the imagery in here is dope. A lot of the fighting is really cool. The scene where they're fighting in the church in this is really nice. I like the imagery of Spider-Man trying to keep the child safe while also talking to Ghost Rider and fighting the Hobgoblin is really cool. I like again the scenes where they're looking for the Hobgoblin himself. There's a lot of cool scenes like that. There's a set piece where they go to a bar in here and end up fighting these gang members who are in the pocket of the weasel of the community who knows where everybody is. It's just really cool. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Now, as far as comparing the two, I mean, it's hard. You know, I feel like Tex did a great job with the art in here. He clearly understands Ghost Rider, and he does a good job at illustrating Ghost Rider. But it's hard to beat Todd McFarlane's art, man. It really, really is. I think the writing is really comparable in this. You know, I think the writing of the two doesn't really... Howard Mackie knew how to extend the writing in this very, very well. But does Todd McFarlane know how to draw a fucking comic book? Like, I know I've shown you guys a lot of the pictures already, but I mean, there's just... He knows how to make comic characters look cool, man. I love Todd McFarlane's art style. Like, his art style is very, very striking in a big way. You know, he just knows... Even Ghost Rider. He knows how to make Ghost Rider look fucking sinister as shit. You know, he knows... People want big flames with the Ghost Rider. He knows how to make him look just like the sickest fucking dude. And I feel like the pairing of these three, in particular, the Hobgoblin, Ghost Rider, and Spider-Man, works well for Todd McFarlane's art, but also made for an interesting story that tied really well into Ghost Rider's particular arc that he was in at the time, and helped sort of lay some groundwork for more to come from Danny Ketch's run as the character. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to say. I feel like if you're wanting a good read, these four aren't bad. It's not a bad set to grab. I bought these three in North Carolina when I was visiting John and Hannah at a local store down there, and then I bought this on my comic shop. It was one of my quarantine pulls, and it was nice to sit down and read them all. It's an impressive arc. It's an impressive story. I like how it deals with theism, or at least religion, and the potential corruption that can be seen within it. It's a cool little story. But that's my piece. That's my piece on it. What do you think of these heroes? Do you like Spider-Man? You guys know I like Spider-Man. Do you like Ghost Rider? You probably know I like Ghost Rider now. What do you think of Todd McFarlane's art? Do you like it? Let me know in those comments down below. What do you think of this episode? If you did like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you would like to join their ranks, get early access to content, exclusive content, or help drive the community, it's linked in the description. I'm going to get out of here. I've been Viral Rack. You guys are Good Days Live Situations. And I'll see you another day.